time just to meditate. Listen while I educate. I've been busy bridging the gap, so we let's separate. Silence in the syndicate. Close, but we don't get it yet. Traders to the state. I'm exiting out only middlemen. Hyped up off adrenaline.
Back at it again. Where else could we be, baby? The Town Crier, we are here. Another episode. It's a blessing, man. It really is a blessing. How y'all feeling?
I'm good, baby. Glad to be here one more time.
Dr. Q back in the house. We told you it was going to be a part two. You know, the voice returned. The voice was out for a week. He's back in the mix right now. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad, man. We here. We blessed, you know. KK took the day off. You know, the artist formerly known as Angie being fashionably Angie, you know. She will be dubbed a new name today, by the way. We can't use the A Boogie name anymore. So we finally landed on a name. We're not going to announce it till she's here, so we'll get to that later. But in the meantime, you know, we back at it. You know, I don't know if you guys got a chance to check out. Obviously, you did, but, you know, you listeners got a chance to listen to the last episode, our tribute to Black History Month. We've actually got a lot of responses, you know, a lot of good positive feeds from it about not only, you know, the things we talked about and, you know, it's a pretty powerful episode. I remember I had a bunch of questions prepared. We only got through one or two of them because it kind of just took on a life of its own. And the voice was missing, man. We needed you on that joint right there, man. From what you saw, what was your take on it? How'd you feel about it?
Felt like it was a good pod. I mean, even though I wasn't here.
No, all good.
Let me not say it like that. You know, I always love the episodes where we touch on more grounded topics,
right?
Rather than celebrities, movies, pop culture. I mean, anybody could talk about that for days, but being more grounded, talking about your community, you know, the people you're around, your environment. I thought it was a great episode. Hopefully, this could be a repeat.
Indeed, and that's kind of the battle. You want to be popular and talk about pop culture stuff just to be popular, but that's Town Crier is really talking about stuff that really matters. Not saying pop culture doesn't matter, but, you know, there's levels to things, you know, so we got to make sure we give everything its due. And, you know, a lot of responses from the clips that we put out, and it was good.
Let me ask you, the name itself, Town Crier, when I hear that name, I hear someone saying, I want to get past all the salacious noise of popular opinions and this, that, and the third, and have real talk
right
about what's really going on, you know. And so I think that even in this name, that's what you are about. That's the Town Crier. That's
exactly the whole purpose of it. It took a while for us to actually come up with the name. We had a little forum in a spot called Harlem Social. Shout out to Harlem. So a couple of you we couldn't think of a name for the pod, and collectively a couple of us came up, you know, with that name, and that was a blessing. It took on a life of its own. Ended up finding a logo, and you know, we done went from there. But you know, now we definitely. I'm glad we got a chance to give Black History Month its due. We caught it right at the tail end of the month. You know, you only limited time in February, his favorite month.
I tell you that. I'm trying to tell you, better get it in while you can.
We only got limited time and all of that, but you know, we definitely wanted to shout everybody who's out there to struggle, not just Black people. You know what I mean? We all part of the town, community, Spanish, Native American, white, Asian, whoever you are. You know, a lot of unfortunately, a lot of life is defined by the struggles we go through and that we have to overcome. You know, that's just kind of the way it is, and it's almost like. It almost feels like, to a degree, if you didn't struggle, you didn't live. You know what I mean? It's not fair because I guess not everybody has to struggle. But it doesn't mean they don't live. But I guess the things you have to overcome in life is what make you stronger.
I think that everybody has to struggle. They just struggle in different ways.
Okay.
You know, even those, if you were to say the whole silver spoon thing,
right?
They have a struggle. What I mean by that, look at every child prodigy. They have their own struggle. So everyone has to struggle. The question is, how do you deal with that struggle? You know, does it break you or does it make you stronger? You know, and so that's kind of what I guess we're trying to do, is trying to help people not to be broken, because that's a choice, that's a decision that we have to make.
Yeah.
You know, will I allow this to break me, or will I hear something, it gives me encouragement to say, hey, everybody goes through this. It's just my test, and find a way to become stronger, from it.
Yeah, I guess we all go through this, through our own test. What would you say throughout your life? What would you say a testing moment? Can you recall a moment where
you asking the right person?
Okay, here we go.
Nah, I mean, a big struggle that I had to. Let me not. This sounds like an essay at this point. let me not say it like that. That was like my. I dealt with a lot of like homelessness when I was younger. And I feel like that was a big struggle because, I grew up poor. My friends, none of us had money like that. But then when that happened, I was the only one that had kind of ever gone through that. And so I couldn't really take advice from anybody. Nobody knows exactly what to do. I had friends, luckily, that were able to help, but, that was a big struggle. And because I had grown up, that never happened. My mother always kept everything kind of, copacetic. I never knew that we were in trouble until the hammer dropped, right? Yeah. So and what that really taught me was how to be adaptable, I feel like, because in that situation was when I got a job in that situation. I was playing my first shows in my first band. I was really not trying to let that stop me.
Right.
And I think that goes back to what you said, just the choice. Is this going to break me or is this going to, propel me kind of?
Be a catalyst.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Without that, honestly, I used to, look back at it with regret. Like I could have done more back then, but I'm glad I went through that now as, an older man.
Yes.
I look back at it and I think, wow, if I hadn't gone through that, I don't know if I'd be this exact same person today. So.
No, it's funny though. When we were on the last pod, the one that you missed, KK asked, as Black Americans, what do you say your biggest strength is? You remember what the answer was? Adaptability.
Oh, really?
It was exactly
I think I did say that.
What you just said.
I wasn't mimicking him though.
No, that's okay. See, that's irony right there. But honestly, a lot of stuff that we say ends up coming back into fruition on this pod. You know how many times it's happened? One of the things that actually happened on one of the pods we were talking about, just to jump back in, and we're going to put a closure on the Black History thing. There's a couple of things I wanted to say. One pod we talked about was the kid in Mississippi, in Cleveland, Mississippi, that went to that college that got hung. They said it was a suicide. And that Colin Kaepernick's people actually did a second autopsy on it. They found it was not a suicide, which we all knew that it wasn't. You know what I mean? And, everything comes to fruition, and it's crazy in 2026 this is still going on. Now, understand in New York, we get to face our problems on relative even ground and head on, as opposed to being somewhere in the deep South. Much love to the South. I got a lot of people in Sweden, but I said much love. I said much love.
All right.
Much
Georgia.
Love.
Oh, Georgia.
No, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you.
Broke out the Ray Charles real quick.
A funny little moment. I lived in Atlanta for a little while, and it's funny. I had a couple of friends down there. We used to play ball. We used to debate about North and South, and I used to mess with them. A couple of Southerners for their accent and their style. Like, y'all not on the level and this and that. And one dude, he put me in my place real bad. He's like, what it is we were slaves longer than y'all was. That's all it really was. And I've never been put in my place, halted ever in my life, because I really thought about what he said. It took a while before we could read this and that. Not him, but generations before, obviously. And so it's powerful.
Let me say this. People always, those who don't know, I'm from Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, to be exact.
Shout out Georgia.
Two things. So I went to undergrad at Valdosta State University.
What's it called?
Valdosta State.
Valdosta, okay.
South Georgia. Last city you hit on 75 leaving Georgia.
All right.
Growing up in Columbus, which was a military town, and going to school in South Georgia, it was kind of different. In South Georgia, I was there from 1996 to 2000. They still had the big rebel, huge rebel flags on the back of their trucks. I mean, it was loud and clear, where they stood. And a matter of fact, it was a few years back is where they found, so Valdosta, Georgia is Lowndes County. And it was at, I think, Lowndes County High School where they found the young black man rolled up in the wrestling mat, that they never came to terms with what happened to that young man.
I think I heard about that.
Yeah. And so I grew up in a space where racism was very, very clear. But I honestly have a healthier appreciation for overt racism compared to covert racism.
Of course.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know where you're coming from, and I can adjust myself to deal with where you're coming from, as opposed to someone that's, you
won't be blindsided.
Yeah, I won't be blindsided. But specifically about the South, I always tell people, they ask me, how you like New York? How is it? And I always say, I said, Harlem is the South.
Really?
Harlem specific still has a Southern spirit. And I always say that people from Harlem may not even realize it, but someone coming from the South picks it up easily. It's still an energy, a spirit from those Southern roots that migrated up to the North. So Harlem feels very comfortable to me when I came here because it was familiar. It was very Southern. Matter of fact, if I walk down the street in Harlem and I'd be like, "What's up?" Somebody say, they'd be like, "What's up?"
I love that about Harlem, though.
Yeah, Harlem is still the South. They still sit out. They don't have porches. They have stoops.
Mm-hmm.
In the summertime they bring out their chairs and sit out on the corners.
So what's the Bronx? That's the Midwest mixed with Puerto Rico, or what's going on in the Bronx? Nah, I'm just messing with you. I'm kidding. That's a joke, y'all. That's a joke.
Did you know
Shout
that
to the
before
BX.
moving to Harlem, that it would have that kind of Southern atmosphere and spirit?
I did not. It was, again, New York was New York when I came. It literally did not hit me until I was here. And I came here in the summertime.
Okay.
And so I really felt it in the summertime. It was very familiar energy.
And the funny thing is, Harlem's not a borough. Harlem is a giant neighborhood,
It's
but
a
it
village.
feels like a borough.
Harlem Village,
it's the Harlem World. It's the Harlem World.
It ain't but a few blocks.
Yeah.
But it feels like a whole borough.
Yeah.
Harlem people gonna come at me in the comments. Feel free. But I feel like, and I already see it coming, Harlem, the Bronx also has that kind of, atmosphere where you could say what's up to somebody walking down the street, at least where I grew up.
Yeah.
I grew up on like Sedgwick, Kingsbridge. It was a tight-knit community. I couldn't do anything without somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows my mother telling her. It was crazy. My mother grew up in that neighborhood. She knew everybody. We would all be outside together. She knew my friends' parents, my friends' grandparents, their aunts, uncles.
And that's
I don't know if it's still like that, but
last
definitely
episode
when I was
about
growing up.
community.
I was just
I know.
getting ready to say
I know.
community.
Yeah. Things were definitely different, but definitely a big shout out to Black History Month. Now, there's something just to end the topic. There was a book somebody just put me onto it. It's called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro by J.A. Rogers. I actually found the audio books. By the way, if any of y'all ever want to get free audio books, there's an app called Libby, Libby. If you download it to your phone, it's actually a free library card app. So it's almost like borrowing an audio book from the library. It costs you nothing. So if you do like audio books, check out the Libby app. Well, one of the things I found there was called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro by J.A. Rogers. And J.A. Rogers, he was around in the time of like Schomburg, where the libraries in Harlem, and A. Philip Randolph and all that. He was like buddies with those guys. And the third or the fourth fact in the thing, it literally numbers them, was it said how many actual Africans were brought from Africa over to the Americas. And it was 12.5 million, but only 10.7 actually made it. So that means 1.8 died during the journey. And it was South America, the Caribbean, and North America. Out of the 10.7 million that came, do you know how many actually came to the United States? It was only 388,000 of 10.7 million. The rest of them went to South America, and Brazil alone was like 4.6 million. So that blew my mind. I thought it was way more here, you know what I mean? It's, if you ever get a chance, definitely check that out, because I'm up to like this number 17 and everything is new. Well, it was the first black town, the first black preacher, you know, so the first black president was actually was in Mexico. I forgot his name. And he ran in 1824 and 1828, and he didn't get elected, but he corrupted. So he just Bin Laden the whole thing and just took the country in 1829 and said, I'm president now. He took over and he abolished slavery in Mexico in 1829. And that's when Texas seceded, because we want slavery. So Texas seceded I can't lie. If you get a chance, check that. It's just, if you're a history person, and, my saying is those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. So
what was
check
the name
it
of the
out.
book again for us?
It was called 100 Amazing Facts About the Negro by J.A. Rogers. It's actually very, very
I got it pulled up right here. I can't do the audiobook. I'm going to have to read the regular book, but I got
there's only 1 or 2 copies, and I got one for 19 more days, so stay out of my stay.
Dang.
I'm messing with you. But it's actually pretty cool. And I've thought about it because I looked up the total population that we have in the United States now, and it's 49 to 51 million. So that 388,000 turned to 49 to 51 mil. But they actually said there was a second, obviously, slave trade, and that was the internal one, that once we got here, once cotton actually started becoming, I didn't realize how lucrative the cotton industry was. They started bringing the ones from South America up here and all of that, because it was like 7 times the amount of currency that was in circulation. The slaves were worth more than 7 times the entire currency of the United States. It was pretty serious.
That's
and
wild.
the cotton, it was pretty deep. But
So I'm a numbers man, right?
oh yeah.
Yeah. So to be honest with you, those numbers don't add up. We spoke about that earlier.
Okay.
Right. So we're talking about, you said 388,000.
388,000.
That was dispersed.
Not counting the ones that were born here because of that 388.
Correct. But 388,000 dispersed amongst the 13 colonies. Because all of them pretty much at some point, right?
More
For the most part.
Right. But the cotton wasn't popping yet. It was not just yet in the beginning,
Yeah. Right. And so I loosely say, because I'm not fully all the way invested in trying to find out what the details are.
Right.
But I do know that there were Africans that were traveling all over the world. I mean, you find Africans in Asia, Japan, China,
Right.
Mexico. I mean, those big
Statues and stuff. Oh, yeah.
in Mexico and South America and all that stuff, right? And it's very interesting if we really start digging deeper in there about, okay, you had the 388,000, but how many Africans were already here to combine with that 388,000, right?
Or were they already enslaved?
The argument is that they were enslaved here.
When they got here.
No.
Were they already
They were
enslaved when they
already
were
here and were then enslaved.
Oh, so once the colonizers got here, then they got enslaved. They were already here with the Native Americans, you mean?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think have heard stuff like that, or theories. I don't know about any facts, but I've heard a lot of stuff like that.
Correct. And so now, what does that? I don't want to take us off another.
No, it's okay.
Now, what does that mean when? So I'm not a reparations guy. Now, if you give it, I'm fine. The reason I say I'm not a reparations
We'll
guy,
get to that in a second. Keep going.
the reason I say I'm not a reparations guy, meaning I don't spend my energy trying to look for and expect reparations. I would much rather give me the freedom to create my own. I don't need to fight you to give me what I may feel I may be owed.
Mm-hmm.
What I would ask, if you give me the freedom to do my own, to create and do my own thing, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that we have the skills and abilities and the giftings, if given the opportunity, without the meddling, we can create. We history has shown we can create our own thing and do great things.
No, indeed.
So to spend my energy on trying to continue to ask for something that I know that you're not going to do, I think to me is like spinning your wheels, and you could be using that time and energy
Agreed.
to create your own thing.
But the funny thing is ironic. One of the other things in that book actually said the 40 acres and the mule thing, that actually happened. It started with one of the presidents, and there was black people that were getting 40 acres. It was a whole set of land that was set aside. I forgot which president, but either Andrew Jackson or Johnson came in next and said, absolutely not. Came in, gave the land right back
To get right back.
We missed on our 40. A
lot of that was prime real estate now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the travesties goes on. Our month is over. We're on the march.
But our year
Go.
continues.
Indeed. The journey continues, Now, the artist formerly known as Angie, I actually came up with an interesting topic. And it's about those of us that actually have been exalted to celebrity status. The
Like us in this room right now?
Yeah, we're getting there, As long as you like and subscribe.
Speak it.
I'll say I'm
Like and
manifesting right now.
subscribe, as
Like
long
and
as you do
subscribe.
that, we'll be there. We appreciate y'all commentary and everything. But when we get exalted to celebrity status, things change. Your environment change, your surroundings change. And some of the deeds become morally questionable. Some of the situations we get put in, sometimes even criminal. Do we as a society give them too much of a pass? Celebrities.
Is that even a question? Of course they do.
How far is the pass? Now, before I start name dropping on these celebrities and stuff, you know what I mean? Some of them not even amongst us anymore. You know what I mean? But some of us, the names that have been in question, the Bill Cosbys, the Michael Jacksons, the R. Kellys,
Whoa.
50 Cent and T.I. We'll get to y'all in a minute. We're going to get to y'all in a minute. But, it's the Diddy's. We don't got to question that one. We already talked about that one right there. Do we give celebrities too much of a pass? And that's just the black ones. We're not going to get... We'll get to the other ones later, but do we give them too much of a pass? Do we not?
I'm going to say we do.
Mm-hmm.
As proven by the Epstein files, celebrities get way too much of a pass.
That was next.
But you mentioned Michael Jackson. I just want to touch on that real quick, because we look now as people who have seen and read the Epstein files. I don't know if you guys have been, perusing any of that,
Right.
but we can see how the real criminal corruption organization works, right? We could see how they're covering it up. We could see the emails, who's involved, like this entire kind of workflow of criminality. Now, what did they ever find on Michael Jackson?
Nothing.
FBI stuff was inconclusive. You would think that if he actually did something, and to me, it was just people who wanted money trying to slander his name. Because if you look at
That's a
it,
good point.
there's no criminality worksheet like we can look at now with the Epstein files and kind of use that as a benchmark. So that's why when people throw Michael Jackson's name in there, I'm always like, nah. I think that he didn't do anything. I'm sorry.
I think it's two things. But it always leads to one. Two things. I believe that sometimes when you start moving in certain circles, you become comfortable.
Right.
And you kind of take on some of their, the world that you're in, and kind of moving like those who you are around. And again, you just become overly comfortable. You think that, you can do what they do. Until
Somebody calls you on it.
well, no, not till someone calls it, because they're never going to call you on it until you become a threat. And they use the same playbook over. I mean, I don't understand. It's the same playbook. Michael Jackson bought the Beatles catalog.
Bill Cosby,
Tried to buy the network.
Yeah.
R. Kelly was getting ready to get trying to get his master's. Who else you name? Diddy went after that vodka company.
Ciroc.
Well, I wasn't gonna name it, but yeah.
My bad. You good?
The drink formerly known as Ciroc.
Yeah. And so it is only it only becomes a public issue when when our celebrities tend to go too far in their eyes, and then they turn our own people against them. It is very rare that you see other groups eat their own people like this. Not to say that let's move past right and wrong. My thing is, if you're going to hold this person accountable for their actions, which I think you should, I think let's hold everybody accountable to the same extent.
Yep.
Right? I have issue when you hold this person accountable and you don't hold these persons accountable to the same scrutiny. So that's my issue with the whole situation, right? So two things. One, I think sometimes celebrities get too comfortable and they do questionable things. And here's the real reality is those questionable things is really them acting out of the culture and the environment we live in. What sells? What sells? Sex.
Sex sells, trauma,
Violence.
Mm-hmm.
We love it. We appreciate it. We tune in for it. We desire it. We want, and I keep saying we, just, as a culture.
It's like in an essay when you use one, right? It's like proverbial.
Yeah, proverbial.
Stimuli driven. We're driven by stimuli.
Not just stimuli, but very specific stimuli.
Endorphin.
Yeah, but for something to create endorphins and stimuli, it means that it's something that you desire.
Okay.
Right? So, for instance, I don't smoke certain substances. Not just because I'm such a great saint and all these other things. I just don't desire that.
Okay.
You understand? I'm not a fan of liver.
Like to eat?
To eat.
Oh, me either.
Nor am I.
Yeah. So I don't get to pat myself, I don't eat liver, right? But there are some things I do appreciate, right? Mm-hmm. And those things do create temptation. Those things do create a stimulus and endorphins if I could get a hold of them, right? And so all of these things that we talk about, that we're so outraged about, are the same things that we're so intrigued with, that we desire, that we really want as a culture, right? And then if we were in the average person, I would argue, in our country, who had the access to do all these things we're so outraged about, I believe that if given access and abilities and all those other things, they jump right in on it, right? And so these, again, I'm saying from a cultural standpoint, in no way do I agree with taking advantage of anybody, right? But I do believe we have fake outrage sometimes. And also I think that a lot of the stuff that first of all, we ain't talking about messing with little kids, right? But let's go back to Diddy. And we talking about freak-offs and stuff. I think that a lot of young men would have loved to have been a part of seeing some of those things that, that we're so outraged about now.
No, but it's funny you say that because it's easy to jump into the sex thing because, that's just naturally ingrained.
Correct.
But let's go to a different place with it.
Go ahead.
A lot of these rappers with the lyrics they talking about,
correct,
and the violence and the gangsters, which sounds hot,
correct,
but 98% of us don't live that life.
But we
it
desire
sounds
it.
Good when you rhyme it. You know what I'm saying?
But we desire it. That's my point.
Okay.
Like
even some of the rappers don't live these lives. But
they lie
and they make it sound.
But we desire, like even if we don't, even if they don't live, even if they don't live it, even though they don't live it, it is appealing to a crowd that does desire and wish, even subconsciously, that they did. They living vicariously through the artist. So that tells me that that's the life you would like to live if given the opportunity.
I don't know if it's live it more than just a taste of it, because once they get in there, they might not like how it tastes. Also, you know what I'm saying? It's not.
I feel like they're
keep going. Go ahead.
Flag on the play.
Keep going. Okay.
I also feel like for a lot of these rappers, like for example, trap, original trap, like Gucci, right? I feel like he was rapping for people that was actually doing it. So there's a group of people that they're not represented. How are you going to represent cooking up, in the kitchen and stuff like that? They're talking to those people, and that's their fan base. It extends beyond that. Like, for example, our Future, they would say it all the time. A lot of their fans were like white people in college and all this stuff that didn't live what they're talking about or any of that. That's the escapism aspect. But I think the other aspect is them marketing to people who aren't represented,
But that fan base is not the ones that's paying their bills. Because that fan base ain't going to buy the album. It's the other 99% that don't live that sound cool that's actually buying this stuff.
You're right, but I don't think they knew that. I don't think they knew that when they were first making the music that it was going to pop off like that.
Well, it was just coming from their heart.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
but like outside of numbers and money and all that, I'm just saying in general, they still are talking to somebody too.
For sure.
It's like metal, right? And like Linkin Park, Linkin Park, huge band, but they were talking to a bunch of people who were maybe depressed or going through anxiety and just telling them how to get through it, right? That's another, maybe they weren't buying CDs either. Maybe they were just listening to it on, MTV, but there's still a group of people that aren't represented that a lot of these artists are talking to.
Well, let me say this. Let me ask you this. Do you know of any middle class persons, young men or women, who now, what you see over the last 20 years or so, now dress, now speak, now carry a persona of being a city girl, a driller, even if that's not their real life experience. That try to put forth an air of of trying to identify with that lifestyle. Would you say you see that or no?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my point. Is that even though that's not your life, that's you, for whatever reason, you now see that as desirable. And you even carry yourself now as if that is your life.
But the trick to it is they can only do that for people in front of people that can't call them on it, because the ones that can, they will not be able. That facade
But
will not.
how
last.
could you even call somebody on that?
Because it's just something in the eye. It's a look.
But how could you prove it?
Some people know, but that's all right. There's ways to tell when people are lying and telling the truth.
That's like back in the day when people used to call people posers. Mm-hmm. How could you? We're talking about listening to the music and kind of identifying yourself with that lifestyle, right? How could you call it out? Unless they're talking about, they're listening to trap, but they're not whipping it up in the kitchen, right? Yeah. That way you could be like, all right, you're not. But what if they actually just identify with whatever that subculture is?
Because they'll put you to the test, and you will get put to the test.
What's the test?
Somebody may step directly to you and say, you live this life. Okay, let's do this.
Then
and
they
put
tight.
you on the spot,
they tight at that point.
It is. And see, the thing is, a lot of kids today, it's a slanted test today. Back in the day, the test was the test. You know what I mean? There was no mistaking. You know what I mean? Now, it's the gatekeepers have changed. The gatekeepers aren't tested. You know what I mean? It's a weird. This is a whole nother real convo right here, and it's funny how this came about just now. But I don't know exactly what I'm fully trying to say with this, but the times have changed so much now that it really is hard to tell who are the real gatekeepers to, that. I don't know if that life or if people really are who they pretend to be, because social media, you can make yourself into whatever you want, but it don't mean that's what you really are. But if you present the image enough, you get enough people to believe it.
But there's people that also live the life that they're like. There's people that, of course, social media I think is 95% fakeness, right?
More than substance.
There's people that make you think that, like, for example, there was this dude that got arrested. He was like, all of his pictures was on a private jet. He had all this. He got all that money from COVID schemes with the business loans, and then it wasn't his real life. Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't even his real life. But there's some people out there who are, and these people get hate too. The people who are actually living that life, because then you're just flaunting that. We don't have that. What are you flaunting that for? It goes both ways, but that's like the 5%. I feel.
So let's bring it back, which goes back to really our last episode. What is the impact of all that on our communities? And I think that it has had a direct negative impact on our communities.
I agree.
We've always had these characters within our community, right? But the difference is that those characters were understood to be the outliers. And actually, those characters, if they saw someone who was, had potential, whatever, they would say, "Hey, no, you go to school. You stay.
100%.
Hang on 1 second while you have a thought. The door has moved right now. The artist formerly known as A Bookie has walked in the door. Come on with yourself
definitely agree
now.
with you
Come on,
on
but
that
keep going.
Yeah. So all of these images has created a bipolar society. On one hand, we are outraged by the behavior, while at the same time desiring the same behavior.
Gotcha.
And so we allow media to manipulate us emotionally, because when it's said a particular way, it induces, oh, that's wrong, and so it sends us up on an emotional, roller coaster. But at the same time, deep down, we also kind of like that lifestyle, and we wish we could have it.
Right.
So I call it fake outrage that is one-sided, that always hits our community, while the other communities They get more real passes than we do.
100%.
And the other communities will stick behind their people way more than we stick behind ours. And
Are we our own worst enemy?
We are.
yeah,
We've been trained to hate each other.
yeah. I mean, back even, I hate to go here, but even during the slave days, you know, you got a benefit for telling, you know, hey master, they're gonna get away on Thursday night. They're gonna go down the river. And so
It's crazy.
yeah, and that's the reality and the spirit and the energy that, you know, unfortunately sometimes it's passed down. And you know, there's a derogatory word called cracker,
Right.
and oftentimes, you know, we use that towards a particular race of people, right, as a slur. But the reality is, you know, oftentimes who were the crackers? The cracker meaning that the one that would crack the whip on the slaves in order to give lashes and punishments.
Is that where that came from?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I didn't know that either.
Me either.
And so the crack of the whip. Oftentimes, you know who the cracker was? Another black man who got a little extra oomph with the good people. Got a little extra position.
He was under the false impression that they gave him a bit of status.
That is so sad.
And that is the false impression that these celebrities have of themselves, oftentimes.
Wow.
I can see. Yeah.
And so they put these crackers in front of us, right?
Wow.
These millionaires, and say, oh, you know, they give them some status. And those same millionaires become now the gatekeepers to keep others from taking their spot. And now they become the modern day crackers.
Wow. That was deep.
Come on, bro. What's better than the town crier? Come on, man.
Nothing.
That's what we're here for. This is what we're here to talk about, man.
You
Come
know,
on.
That really
Joking?
makes me think about the. Have you seen the documentary on America's Next Top Model?
No, I did. I did see a little piece when she was out there looking crazy, trying to dance with the Sigmas. I felt a certain kind of way about it.
Look at her. Look at her.
I felt a certain kind of way
Yeah.
about that. But
Shout out to Blue 5. Shout out to y'all for real. You know, I
I mean,
hear
as a
y'all.
fellow D9,
Our people
I
love
felt a
Blue
certain
Five.
kind of way about, you know, how that whole depiction, you know. Of course, you know, I am a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated
Yeah,
Press. So
yeah.
nice.
Incorporated.
Twice. Yo, noops.
Oh, look.
Trademark patent pending.
Look. It's getting fraternal up in this joint right now.
But what you said reminded me of that because, you know, she's a black woman who has always talked about, and also she wasn't super skinny. She was curvy. So she was always talking about, well, in the documentary, she was like, she wanted to put these women on, you know, really change their lives. She wanted people who looked like her. But from everything I saw and what she said, I feel like she wouldn't even take accountability. It was just a lot of her gatekeeping. Mm-hmm. It was like when there was somebody who was just as good or could have been as good as her, she would not give them the grace that they deserved. And there was one person that was, they won and they were signed to the modeling agency and she struggled for like 15 years. And it wasn't until 15 years later, Tyra told her, yeah, I saw you struggling and I did nothing to help. That's like the worst thing the worst regret that I have. And that's sad, you know, because she could have put every single person she wanted to. The excuses might be, oh, the network, and they didn't want to see people like that. Like, you know, they wanted, but come on, at the end of the day, you know what it is.
Yeah.
No, indeed.
Modern day crackers.
No,
Yep.
Indeed.
We got to put that on a shirt.
No, modern day crackers, y'all. I mean, what's better than this? This is what we're about. Town Crier. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. It's the never-ending topics. We could take a sentence and build an entire pod off of it.
Bars.
And that's true substance right there. That's what we're here for. This is what we do. Town Crier. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. Y'all ready to go live? Somebody's got to want to chime in and talk with us because the more we do this, they're talking to us on the chat. They're talking to us in the comments.
We need KK for that one, though.
No, indeed. KK, my
Because
favorite
I need him to go back and
Nigerian,
forth with the.
You're a part of the heart and soul of this, bruh. Make sure we all here.
Yeah.
Next episodes are coming soon. This is what we do. One.
Take some time just to meditate. Listen while I educate. I've been busy bridging the gap, so we let's separate. Silence in the syndicate. Close, but we don't get it yet. Traders to the state. I'm Xing out all the middlemen. Hyped up off adrenaline, watching as things transpire. Calling out the lies, feeling like the town crier. Who's the main antagonist and who's the outlier? They could try to hide them, but I'm here to outline them. Laws, they ain't bulletproof. You know I'll find them. I was born looking for the truth. Knowledge is in my root. Wildin' like Bandicoot. Haters be a fan of Q. Treat them all like Hannibal. Spreading like a point of view.